Frank Parsons. I've worked for years in the chemical field, doing analytical work and plant management. In later years though, I've specialised in the tissue analysis from human and other mammalian samples, and looked at what was causing those levels, and so formed opinions as to what causes changes in the human physiology.
What are your scientific credentials?
I have Diploma of Science from Deakin University and Certificate of Applied Chemistry from the Gordon Institute of Technology.
Thank you. So what is your background and what is your involvement in the water fluoridation issue?
Only as an interested party in terms of the opportunity to analyse the population and discover what elements are essential and which ones are toxic, and what effects they're having on the human race at present.
Have you had direct involvement in water fluoridation?
No, only insofar as I've analysed the water as it comes out of the tap.
According to Vivienne Howard, Professor of Bioimaging, Biomedical Sciences at the University of Ulster in Coleraine and fetal toxicology expert, there is a particular danger to infants from fluoridated water. Now, Professor Howard states that we are circumventing the natural defences provided by mother's breast by putting fluoride into tap water. What has your own research shown in relation to infant exposure to fluoridated water? Is fluoride dangerous to infants, and why?
Well, from an ordinary perspective, the first thing is that the mother's breasts appear to reduce the fluoride levels, and she provides milk with approximately 0.013 milligrams per litre of fluoride in it. If you then think about the replacement of that with a formula, and you use a 1 milligram per litre fluoridated water from the tap, and allow for a little bit of evaporation during the heating of that water in the formula, you're dosing the baby at 100 times the natural level. Now, that bothers me because there seemed to be no problem with the level that was in the female breasts before fluoridation, and in fact the New Zealand and Australian authorities accepted that the level in the female breast were at 0.013 milligrams per litre was suitable and the proper level. But when you go to the extremes of putting fluoride in everybody's water, then there are no exclusions to who gets it, and in this case the infants get about 100 times more than they would if they were being breastfed.
And do you think that's a dangerous level?
The body certainly didn't evolve to be exposed to those levels, so it would be my opinion that it was the wrong thing to do.
Have Australian mothers been warned about this, as far as you know?
Well, I was published on the subject in a journal, but the likelihood of them getting that journal is pretty remote. And apart from what you might pick up by internet studies, I've never seen it advertised that such a monstrous step really was being taken to alter the natural course of things.
So the American Dental Association recommends fluoride-free water for mixing infant formula. Should Australian mothers be given the same warning?
Definitely, and they should also be warned that fluorides at quite high doses are in antibiotics and other medications, and that at present the average rate of fluorosis, dental fluorosis in American children is 32%. I found a similar level of fluoride toxicity in the tissues that I've analysed. I think I've analysed 2,000 now, and at least 30% of those were what I considered toxic to fluoride.
So 1 in 3 children are developing dental fluorosis in America from fluoridated water, and you find that that's a similar example happening here in Australia?
I do.
And would you, in your opinion, consider dental fluorosis to be a toxic dose of fluoride, or a build-up of fluoride that's become toxic?
Well, children that aren't exposed to antibiotics or fluoridated water have no mottling of the teeth, no hypermineralisation. So if you use that as a yardstick, you've quite drastically altered the dietary uptake of fluoride if it produces fluorosis, and to that extent I just wouldn't countenance.
Your company, Alternative Health Sciences, has conducted extensive tests such as tissue samples on people in an attempt to discover possible fluoride toxicity. What have your results revealed?
Across the board, there is about 30% fluoride toxicity before the addition of fluoride to their drinking water. This is because fluorides are in insecticides. They will be shortly used to kill the bugs that develop in silos.
I had to stop the tape here. Frank said, what?
Because fluorides are in insecticides. They will be shortly used to kill the bugs that develop in silos.
Fluoride is being sprayed in silos where food is stored? I did some research and came up with these astounding facts. Sulfuryl fluoride is a colourless, odourless, liquid gas fumigant that has been used since the 1950s to kill bugs and rats that attack wooden structures. On January the 23rd, 2004, the United States EPA passed new regulations granting Dow Agrochemicals permission to use sulfuryl fluoride gas with the trade name Profume as a post-harvest fumigant for use in storage facilities such as silos or warehouses, fumigation chambers, food handling and commodity processing facilities, with a withholding period after fumigation at a minimum of 24 hours. Then, on the 1st of January 2008, the Government of Australia passed legislation that allows sulfuryl fluoride to be used in warehouses, replacing methyl bromide, which is an ozone-depleting chemical that Dow also produces. Note these two names. Dow AgroSciences and Dow Agrochemicals are the same company, and the applicant who lobbied hard to get into Australia. That is, Dow got what they wanted in US, then Australia soon after, despite existing Australian legislation of over 50 years standing. Sulfuryl fluoride is an odourless, tasteless chemical. Odourless, tasteless. There are currently no labelling requirements worldwide for foods fumigated with sulfuryl fluoride. I must mention that in Australia, quote, the Australian Pesticides and Veterinary Medicines Authority are satisfied that the proposed use of Profume gas fumigant would not adversely affect trade between Australia and places outside Australia, unquote. And, quote, the proposed use of Profume gas fumigant will not be an undue hazard to the safety of people using anything containing its residues, unquote. Not an undue hazard to the safety of people. So by this, I presume they mean that sulfuryl fluoride is completely safe. Remember, This is what the NHMRC and others say about fluoride in drinking water. And these bodies have presented reports that fall far short when it comes to adequate long-term safety testing. But in stark contrast, according to the Californian Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, the OEHHA, sulfuryl fluoride's effect on animals tested is, quote, vacuolization of brain sections, unquote. This means holes in the brain. OEHHA, quote, believes infants and children should be regarded as potential sensitive subpopulations due to the neurotoxic effects of sulfuryl fluoride. The brain is the primary target for sulfuryl fluoride toxicity. We are concerned that younger populations may be especially sensitive to sulfuryl fluoride exposures, unquote. And following a lot of scientific terminology regarding the brain, the OEHHA concludes, quote, sulfuryl fluoride exposures can have profound effects on all of these neurologic developmental processes, end of quote. So how on earth can this chemical be considered safe in human terms? How irresponsible was this decision that the Australian government passed the legislation in 2008 to allow this fumigant to be used around food without taking into account the research data conclusively showing sulfuryl fluoride's effects on the brain that were done by OEHHA in 2001, 7 years prior. How irresponsible was this decision made without ordering any human testing? Politicians must be held accountable for the decisions they make on behalf of the Australian people and future generations. Will people still choose to eat products if they know they were fumigated with sulfuryl fluoride? Sulfuryl fluoride's potency cannot be detected, making this chemical even more insidious. That is, sulfuryl fluoride is a colourless, odourless chemical. The dose cannot even be measured by the eyes or nose. And remember, fluoride in drinking water is still accumulating daily at the recommended safe rate, not dose, at 1 part per million per litre. We are being dosed with fluoride from so many sources each day. Now, back to Frank.